What is good, everybody? Man, Coach, they changed the intro music on that StreamYard intro, so we're gonna have to make our own on that one. That music threw me off there for a bit, but nah, man. Appreciate y'all tuning in, man. Hit the like button, subscribe as always. Welcome into the Bluebloods, man. Just got back from New Orleans. HBCU Legacy Bowl was there all week. Hope you guys enjoyed the one-on-ones, interviews, all that good stuff, man. Coach was down there at the end of the week. Got to catch the last practice. Really, that Friday was a walkthrough. It is what it is. But last practice. But Coach, man, how we feeling?
Man, I'm good, but I was kind of like you when I was looking down, that music came on. I was like, "What is B on
Not the
now?" I
same.
thought you did that. I was like, "What is he
No,
on?"
no. I say we on a whole different vibe on that one. No, but man, Coach, let's get right into it. Let's not waste anyone's time here. HBCU Legacy Bowl, HBCU Combine. We'll start here with the Combine, Coach, because there was a big conversation surrounding the amount of guys who chose not to participate, who were invited and they decided not to run their 40. They decided not to do the vert. They decided not to do the bench press, the three cone, whatever it may be. And there were a handful of guys that just didn't participate at all. Just decided, coach, the night before just said, "Yeah, I'm not going to do anything." Actually, and there was a lot of pushback. There was a lot of conversation about that, coach. When you hear that, just I want to take it from your perspective, because my perspective as a guy in the media and a guy who is connected to some scouts, and we do a lot of scouting, a lot of vouching behind the scenes for these guys. Because when you hear that as a coach, and just that, not even the top guys, right? Because Rob McDaniel, Kendall Bowler performed, Irv Mulligan performed, but some of these mid-level guys that are locked in UDFA guys decided not to participate in the combine. But coach, they suited up the day after to go play on the field in the game and practice. I mean, what was your initial takeaway on that? And like, why is this becoming a trend we're seeing?
That my initial is like, "What are you doing?" Um, that tells me that you're not ready. You haven't prepared for this opportunity. You're definitely trying to mask, hide something. And if it's not you, if it's your representation, then I think you really need to look at your representation, because this is an opportunity that don't come around all the time. Who's to say that all NFL teams are going to be at your pro day on campus? Who's to say that? Even though they all get those numbers, but every team in the league had someone there representing them. So the eye test is something that you can't get back. Even though, let's say, Blue Bloods may not be there, but they're going to get the combine numbers. But to actually see Fred in person, to be able to write a side note, he's every bit of 6'2", he's every bit of 185, just looks good. Uh, you missed that opportunity. And if it's your representation telling you not to do that, I mean, that's a huge gamble. And I hope that, there's a method behind that. But to me, once you know you're coming there, you get your invite, you got to be ready, man. You got to be ready to put on and go. Uh, just because it's a privilege, it's an honor. Not everybody gets that opportunity, and I think those guys need to really look at it that way.
I think there's so many levels to this conversation, right? Because coach, I think it starts with representation.
Mhm.
And I'll say this, and me and Gerald and some other guys have had this conversation. Coach, when you're there, and especially in kind of a media aspect, the agents kind of seek us out to talk, interview my guy. Like, what can I do to promote my guy? And like, there's a few agents, man, shout out to Rashida and some of the people we've had on the show. They come and ask me about the prospects myself because they trust my eye. And like, I'm that to me, that I love that we've earned that trust, right? And but there's some people that come up and it's like, okay, like, who are you representing? What are you doing here? And it's just like you said, bad advice. And also, too, what's happening, coach. And I've talked to a few scouts and agents about this week. A lot of these guys, coach, and you've probably seen this. The agency promotes who they already signed, right? So
Mhm.
here's what happens, right? Let's just take and like let's just say a safety from FAM, right? He's looking for an agent to sign with. What they'll do is an agency will come up, will come up to him and be like, "Man, we have Shamar Stewart signed. We have Dylan Gabriel signed. We signed Bo Nix. We signed Jamar Chase. Whatever the star may be of their agency, come sign with us, man. Look at what we've done with Jamar Chase. But little do they know, you're not Jamar Chase. He didn't have to work that hard to get Jamar Chase any opportunities, or Shamar Stewart, or Mason Graham, or Travis Hunter, whoever it may be. And what happens, coach, is these scouts have a limited budget. These agents have a limited budget for workouts, for camps, for training, for food, and everything they supply for their players. So let's say they sign 10 players and they got 400K, coach. They have to divvy out that 400K, and guess who's getting the majority of the money, coach?
That big guy.
They're sending Shamar Stewart to his training service from the end of December until the first day of the NFL Combine if they have to. But you know what happens? Because let's say they spend $375K on their P4 guys. You know what that safety from FAM's getting?
Straps.
2.5 weeks at a training facility outside in Dallas to train.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, coach, and you're a wide receiver DB, you're a skill guy. How long, coach, what is the process on improving your 40? Like, how long does it take? And what's the real margin here? Like, if you run a 4.65, coach, is there a way to work that down into the low 4.5s?
It's going to be tough. It's doable, but that's as far as you're going to go. You're not going to turn that 4.6 to 4.3.
No.
You're not going to turn that 4.6 to 4.4. That's not happening in that amount of time or any amount of time. You've got to find you, and I make the suggestion, and people can tap in. I've made the suggestion that some of these guys should really just stay at school and work with their strength and conditioning coach who they've been working with all the time.
Mr. Campbell said the same thing. Just work with your strength and conditioning guy.
Free of charge. Every strength and conditioning coach on this level or any collegiate level NCAA has to be certified, so he knows what he's doing. He knows you, and I think that right there keeps you in a routine. It keeps you in your regiment, things like that, and then I think you add on to it. But I think the lure, the sexiness of being able to say, "Hey, I went and trained in Mobile," it clouds the judgment, if that makes sense. Yeah. The fine line with running a 40 is really technique and your conditioning. And I don't care where you go, if you're not in condition, it's just not going to happen. And that's more of it. Now, if you are 150 pounds, no one expects you to get under 225 and rep that out 37 times.
None.
But, at the same token, if you're an offensive lineman, everybody's expecting you to at least do 10 to 12, over 10 to 12. Again, that comes down to conditioning. Do you really need to go train in Mobile, Miami to get yourself in shape for an opportunity that you say you want? And that's the thing. And that, that was my soapbox when me and you talked about it. And we're going to go through it. But, I don't know how serious some of the guys took this opportunity to be able to perform. You knew months ago that you were coming to this. So, you gotta get yourself ready to go, man. You got, regardless of who your rep is, your agent is, you got to get yourself ready to go. And I don't know if a lot of the guys took it just serious, and when we were sitting there, it just frustrated me, and I wanted to huddle everybody up and just give them this talk. But it was just like, let me stay in my place. But, I think it comes down to just understanding your level and where you fit within it. And I'll tell anybody that asks me about representation, you don't want a guy that's got Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase. That guy, how hard is that guy really going to work for you? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
How hard is that guy going to actually work for you, push for you to get you in the right situation? But then I get it. You also don't want a guy that's trying to get on. But if that guy that's trying to get on is a go-getter, hungry, and making moves, by all means, jump on with that guy. But you've got to make sure that the representation is right, and it's just not the first person that comes to you just to say, "I have an agent." And I think that kind of happens a lot in the business.
Yeah, and listen, I see D and Mr. Campbell in the chat talk about technique. Yeah, technique's a big thing. Knowing when the clock starts, knowing how to start the 40 is the hardest thing to learn.
And it's
And
different. Handheld to laser is different.
yeah,
Uh, and I think that's kind of, what a lot of those guys don't understand, or I think that's kind of what freaks them out. They hear how different that timing is, but you know, again, me out of shape, coffee drinker. I think start alone, I can jump out there with technique and get a decent 5, 10. Now after that, that's when that conditioning kicks in and that clock will fade. But the technique part of it, I think I can do that because I learned that. You know what I mean? And that's something that you learn. A lot of guys, if you watch, a lot of guys are running 41s. They're running 42s. Yeah, your hands on the 40, but your feet are like you're in a 3-point stance. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. That's a whole nother show. But you don't need to go to Miami to learn that, if that makes sense.
yeah, no, it definitely does. And I think the biggest thing too is I think the representation has to inform them on like where they really stand too. I think there's
Mm,
a lot of lying
mm,
going on here.
mm.
Because I think some of the guys who you saw opt out are guys who think they are much higher on the draft board than they actually are. And
I
it's a
like
it's
that.
a it's a hard conversation because we know, coach, it's a competition to get these guys signed. So you know what's going to happen? If I can tell you you're a day 3 rather than a lock in a PFA, maybe I can get you to sign with me because I believe in you, right? There's a whole lot of tricky things going on, and I think some of these kids gotta be honest with themselves on what they really are in the grand scheme of things. Because, coach, I mean, me and you talked about it, talking to a scout, he was like, "Man, we can tell when people aren't honest with themselves." Whether that be coaches, whether that be players. I mean, listen, they had a like he was telling me a D2 coach told them they had 6 NFL caliber players on their team, and they were not a good D2 team. So he was like, odds are you don't have 6 NFL players, or y'all are the worst coaches that have ever existed in the history of anything. So, but coach, I mean, you have kids. So, like, let's take in perspective. There was a safety that didn't run who ranks behind Robert McDaniel. If McDaniel goes out and runs and increases his stock, what made you think you didn't have to run?
And that's just my thought coming from here, so to speak, anyway, in lack of a better way to put it when I say coming from here. But that to me, when you get that invite to the Legacy Bowl, whatever they ask you to do, as long as it's not demeaning, um, you got to be ready to do it.
Yeah,
Are you turning down meetings? No, nobody's turning down the meeting.
no,
Um, so again, that tells me that deep down something, and that's why you're kind of shying away. I left school in December. I really didn't do nothing until like 2 weeks ago, before I had to show up here, and that's bad business from the beginning. You know, a long time ago that you were going to be here performing, and again, that like you said, that kind of goes back to representation, and then that kind of goes to, does a guy have representation? Uh,
oh
from
yeah,
my understanding, a lot of those kids, I shouldn't say a lot, there's a few kids that I heard that didn't have any representation.
none.
Um, and I'm lost on that as well. But again, like I said, that's another show. I guess
Yeah.
we'll dive into that later.
And it was weird too, coach, because all the like when people think opt outs, like you would think the line of scrimmage guys would be the ones to opt out, and that was a lot of people's assumption for what I was talking to. Man, it was the DBs
Still,
that
guys,
really. And listen, Mr. Bowler's in here. Listen, I'm sorry, the 3 highest graded defensive backs all ran.
you're supposed to.
So so what would if Kendall Bowler goes out there and runs, what made you think that you were good enough at corner not to go and run? Like that's to me, that's what's blowing my mind in this whole thing. When you see because coach, there's like let's just say there's this much distance between Bowler and you. Why would you let Bowler get way out here and you just stay where you are by not running? Like and at the end of the day, coach,
I'm coming to compete.
You're coming to compete. And listen, I'm so like I just, in my opinion, all see the film. If you're not a 4-3 guy, you're just not a 4-3 guy, and it's okay.
Yeah,
We
and
know it. We
that's
watched your
yeah,
film.
yeah.
You can tell,
And
like people like I feel like people don't really understand. You can tell who a 4-3 guy is on film. Like it just you
jumps off.
can.
It jumps off.
Yeah, because there's not a lot of 4-3 guys. So when there is a true 4-3 guy, and
Jumps
I
off.
also too, and coach, we talked about this last year. I still don't think people understand how fast 4-5 is. I really, I in the grand scheme of things, people see 4-5 and he's like, ah man, he's all right. He's kind of slow. And it was like, if you saw a 4-5 in person, come on, man.
Nobody runs a 4.5 anymore. It's either 4.4 or better. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. No
And
one
it,
wants to be a 4-5 anymore.
yeah, nobody's yelling that out as a skill person anyway. Um, and then I was kind of like you. I expect or would expect more of a skill person to opt out of 225. I
Yeah.
ain't quite ready. Let me wait on that. But I'm running. It, this is what I do. I play
Yeah.
receiver. What I look like as a receiver not running? What do I look like as a DB not running if I'm not injured? I gotta go. You know what I mean? I gotta
Co-
go.
Coach, this is how bad it got. And I'm not going to name the kid because I don't want to bash him. There was a kid who didn't run. He did the long jump, the broad jump, and killed it. And a scout asked him why he didn't run the 40, and the kid's response was, "Come see me at my pro day."
I ain't coming. If I'm that scout, I'm not coming. You know, maybe he didn't say it with the edge that I'm hearing it in my
Oh,
head.
bro, I don't care how we said it. I don't care if it was the most polite thing ever. You come on, man.
Nah,
What?
this is I want to say this might have been the first, other than the initial first one, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was the one that the one of the few that all 32 teams had someone there.
Yes, I think last year did too, but the first one I think it was like 31-30 or something like that. So like I want to say the past two have had all 32 plus a GM there because the Saints GM obviously
In
right
the
there.
building. Yeah,
Yeah.
in the building. Um, I don't understand the non-competing thing uh, at all. You can't make me, and I'm speaking solely from a skill position perspective. Uh, I just can't see that. That just doesn't make sense to me.
And here's the thing, right? Because this is why I do, and Gerald talks about this all the time. This is why we need more people in the room. Whether it's HBCU, FCS, we need more people like Gerald, Nooks, myself, you. Like we need more people who will vouch for our players in the room. But here's where I get frustrated, Coach. If we're all putting in the work, the time, the effort to get scouting reports out, to talk to
Oh, you got to
scouts,
do the
to talk
same
to
thing.
coaches, man, if I'm behind the scenes fighting for you, putting in hours and time and effort to promote you, and you go out there and make me look stupid,
And I show up and they're telling me, "Hey man, your man didn't run." What?
or or
Hold
or,
on one.
or your
Hold on
man
one
told me to come
second.
see him at his pro day.
Hold on one second. Hold on one second. He'll be ready in 5 minutes. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, and
You
I think
know,
that's where you get the frustration in the media, right? Like, and it's just
it
like
was
I
frustrating
it
to me when you
and
told me that.
this is why it's also frustrating. Is because in the FCS, especially even HBCU, bro, that affects the next group of guys to come out. So let's just say it's at a certain school, right? And it wasn't Alcorn because both of y'all's guys ran. But let's just say Truck doesn't go out there and run and says some crazy stuff like that to a scout. Coach, you know what happens when the next guy comes out of Alcorn?
We're fighting that. We're fighting that. And I again, it's a whole nother show, but I don't think fully that those guys understand the magnitude or the opportunity that they're sitting in.
None.
If you remember last year, we had two kids from our program that decided um, they were only going to go through this part, but wasn't going to play.
Right.
And I don't know if you remember, I just couldn't understand that. That just doesn't make sense to me. Um, we aren't in a position now. Should we be? Yeah, we can talk about the should we be's and all that, but right now this is what we're faced with. So if you are who you say you are, and this is an opportunity that you want,
Go prove it.
get let's go get it. And we don't go get it by talking or saying, hey, come see me in 2 weeks. Because what is going to change from last week, Blue? What's going to change from last
Nothing.
week to March 15th? What's going to change?
Nothing.
I
What,
mean,
2/10 of a second, maybe?
if you're 4-6, you're still going to be 4-6 in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Or no, two
Unless,
hundredths of a second, not tenths, but two like what, a hundredths of a second?
and I don't know how steroids or deer antler spray work. I mean, unless you come up on some of that in a 2 week cycle, and you know, again, I just don't understand that. And then that's where I get upset. That's where I get frustrated at, because like you said, I'm standing on that. I'm talking to these guys when they call, hey, this is what we got at Alcorn, but I need you to go check that guy out over at Valley.
Yep.
Man, he gave us fits. He looks good on film, you know, blah, blah, blah. But then he gets over to Valley, and this didn't happen. I'm just using it. Then he gets over to Valley, and like you said, that kid now is on a whole nother level. And it's like, okay, we're trying to vouch for you. We're trying to vouch for the league, and the league ain't doing what it should be doing. The
No.
league players aren't doing what they should be doing.
I'll say this, and then we're gonna kinda move on because there was a lot of positives too, and I don't wanna kinda get
Oh,
bogged
no, no.
down in this conversation. There's probably gonna be a change eventually. I'm going to assume there's gonna be some sort of rule change. They're gonna invite less players, whatever it may be. There's gonna be a way to fix this, in my opinion, because there was a lot of frustrated people in attendance this week. And I do think that there's going to be some sort of change there. But the last thing, man, start training earlier. Like we talked about, whether that's staying with your strength and conditioning coach, whether that's working out on your own. Don't wait till you can go to this special training camp to get ready for the combine. Coach, I there were like 5 to 10, maybe 15 players that we talked to that didn't start training until like 3 weeks before this.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me.
Bro,
And then
and I'm
they
not
got
talking about
also,
and I'm not talking about the Celebration Bowl guys, by the way. Like, I'm not talking about the guys whose season ended a month after everyone else. We're talking about guys who were done on November 23rd,
yeah,
November
and
16th.
that makes no sense. And I don't think they understand the other part of it. And like you said, we can move on. If I stay here and work out with Coach Gant, that costs me nothing.
Yep.
Um, Even though Blue sends me to Mobile to go work out, I got to come back and see him, whether I get signed or not, more time. Eight out of 10, from my understanding, you still
Yeah.
owe that guy who sent you over there, put you up in an Airbnb or whatever it is. You still owe them, especially if you make it. If you make it into a camp off that back end, you've got to come back and pay whatever that 1,000, 2,000, whatever. So why start in the hole when I can stay right here, work with Coach Gant, eat in the cafeteria, put together a routine, the whole nine, and be good. Uh, we've got to start having that conversation more with our guys, and understanding that, okay, you're a late last day, early free agent call. This is how we need to go about it, and let's work and go this way. Um, that's just, my tidbit. But uh, if Mr. Campbell wants to put up some of that money that he has and open up a facility, I'll be more than happy to run it, Mr. Campbell. Uh, on that side of things, put it together. Me and B get together. We'll make sure they're ready for the media part of it. We'll make sure they're ready for the training part of it. So yeah, let's put it in the works, Mr. Campbell.
So let's get to some biggest winners, man. We got to talk about some kids who did do the right thing, man, and went down and balled out. And we're going to start here, Coach. I'll say this: I don't care what his arm length is. I don't care what his height is. I really don't care what his weight is. Elijah Williams is everything that we thought coming into the week and possibly more. I'll say this, Coach. I've been to the Legacy Bowl from Monday to Friday every single year since the game launched. So I've seen every single player come through here and play, every rep of O line, D line one on ones. Nobody had a more dominant week in the history of this game than Elijah Williams, Coach. It
He
got
put
to the
on.
point where the O linemen were almost scared to go against them, and it didn't matter if it was the D2 kids, the D1 kids. I mean, the kid he pancaked off the spin move was the offensive tackle for South Carolina State, who was one of the top performers the first 3 days of practice, and he pancaked him off the spin move.
Yeah, yeah. He put on, but then he was one of the ones, like I said, early on. Um, I was a little disappointed in, so to speak, because he didn't participate in some of the testing things. But I think his play during those drills might have erased some of that off of him. But in those drills, those one-on-ones, nasty work,
Um,
nasty work.
I'll say this. I don't. There's certain drills, like you said. I'm not going to bash a DB for opting out of bench press. I really don't care about a defensive tackle's 40-yard dash
Nah, no,
because he did
you're
everything
right.
else. I'll say this: 30 reps on the bench press is kind of
That's
crazy.
unheard of. That's unheard of.
Because I want to say that's the highest mark at the HBCU Combine this year was 30, and it was by him. And I heard he could have done more if he would have got the proper grip. He got it a little bit too narrow, and he kind of wore himself out. And I was like, bro, if he wore himself out at 30, that's kind of that's actually is it. But I'll say this: like his measurables aren't as bad as I thought they were going to be, and I'm very interested to see why like they knocked on me. Coach, he had 32 and 1/4 inch arms. That's a little short, but like, bro, like the way that they were talking about that his arm length was the reason he didn't go to the Shrine Bowl is like, man, I was expecting him to have like 29-inch arms or something. Like I'm
T-Rex
talking about
arms.
can't get nobody, but 32 and 1/4 isn't the end of the world in my opinion. Like, coach, is he going to get drafted? I don't know, but he kind of like he's going to be a guy like Cam Peterson out of Southern. If you remember 2 years ago at the Legacy Bowl, he dominated the event. And he's on, and he got a he got a camp invite to the Saints, made the roster. He's still with the Saints now. I got to talk to him this weekend, this past week. Elijah's going to be fine. If he coach, all he has to do is get into camp. That's it,
Yeah, and
and
he
he'll be
will.
fine.
And he will. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't get the call for draft pick. I'd be very surprised if he's not a first 5 minutes after the draft call
Yes,
for some team to come in. And it just off his drills, his motor. Don't get me wrong, that was very impressive. Uh, but again, I just think, and I'm not speaking from the 40 standpoint, but they want to see some things out of those D linemen, those get offs, the tens,
yeah,
just kind of just that's the competing part of it, man. That's the only part that kind of just, for lack of a better way to put it, just gets undermined. That's the fingernails on the chalkboard for me.
yeah. And I agree with you, Mr. Campbell. I think my minimum for an O lineman slash D lineman is 20. Like that's minimum, and it's still at 20. I'm kind of like just 20. 22 plus is perfect. And I think really and truly for the elite guys, I want to see 25 to 30 somewhere in there. And anything over 30 is just like, bro, you're an animal.
Oh
That's
yeah,
insane to get over 30. So I'm with you. Somewhere in that 22 to 30 range is perfect for me. That's all I want to see.
means he's
Anything
in
under
shape.
20 is a red flag. Anything under 20 is a red flag for me for linemen.
Oh yeah, either side of the ball. But that also
Yeah.
means that he's in shape because that's a part of it. You got to have some type of endurance. So hats off to him for at least doing something in the weight room. If he did nothing else, he attacked that. He really did.
Man, and I'll say this in the game, you could kind of tell. I to me, you saw what happened when he just turns it on, right? Because I mean, the guy he beat for the sack was Evan out of Jackson, who's one of the top offensive linemen on the SWAC team. And I mean, it just looked effortless.
It happened quick.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I think helps him is he can play the three, he can get down into a one, he can play the five, he can stand up if God forbid you want to stand him up. And then on top of that, too, coach, he can hit you with the speed, he can hit you with the power, he can go power to speed, he can go speed, like he can do it all. And the
Yes, just not
versatility
bull.
in his yeah, because there's a few guys, and listen, I really like this kid, Mansfield from North Carolina Central, one of my top D tackle performers. I don't know if he has a lot of speed. I don't know if he has a lot of bend, but coach, he's just all power. But when he brings power, man, he's hard to stop just because he's so physical. He's so big. He can get the leverage, has super long arms for an interior guy. He's one of the kind of honorable mentions. But I'll say this, man, Rob McDaniel, too. God, man. Coach, and there's a few players where you would like look out into the like on the field, and you could ask someone who knows nothing about any of these teams, right, and be like, man, who do you think is the top prospect? Rob McDaniel would get pointed at 9 times out of 10.
every time.
He just looked different out there, coach. I mean, you've got to coach again. You've got to coach against him. You've got to coach. You've got to be his coach. 6'2", 213, ran a 4.5, had a 10.8 broad and a 38.5 vert, and put 14 up on the bench for a DB.
And was mad, said he could have got more.
Yep.
So, when he comes to pro day, if he can improve on that, that's going to be even better for him. But the thing that was also impressive about him the day when it was indoors, uh, he didn't run out of there. He didn't hide. He took everybody's question from, this person to that person. He stayed there and he worked the room. So that tells me that, he's been talked to, been coached up on the media part of it. A
Yeah.
lot of guys, I don't know if you noticed, a lot of guys were sweatsuits, book bags, let's go to lunch. Rob's still out there in pads. He's still making his rounds. The people are making their rounds to him. So that was very impressive just on that part. And then he played every snap 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
There was no letting up. Ball clear across the other side of the field. He's in pursuit. He's getting that angle, and he's getting it. Wasn't too cool for school, and that's one of the things that I think a lot of young guys fall off into. Everything's being watched in this environment and recorded, and I think he put it all on tape. He's one of the ones that put it all on tape.
Yeah, I was just really impressed with him, and I didn't expect anything less, right? I mean, I've got to see him play for the past 2 years, and I think this year, especially toward the end of the year, coach, you could just kinda see it all kinda click for him. And I'm not surprised at all that that's what we got out of him. Another kid, and listen, I'm not a D2 guy. This is a FCS show, but I do got to give this kid a shout out. Isaac Anderson from Virginia Union, coach 6'2", 290, 33-inch arms, and just God balling.
That was one of the kids that was really impressive, and I think he came in with a chip on his shoulder, so to speak. And I'm trying to get to his notes that I have in here. Um, he played fast. He was very attentive to everything that was being explained to him. Uh, and that's one of the things that's very important and that I think a lot of guys may not get or understand. Those guys don't want to continue to uh, repeat what they want to see in the drill. And
Yeah.
he was locked in, dialed in, and then it just kind of went from there. But he's one of those guys again, like you said, has got to get that bench. He's got to find 5 more reps uh,
Yeah.
in that 225 when he gets the opportunity. Hopefully, he gets a pro day, somewhere in that area that he can kind of go back and try to improve on that. But yeah, he was impressive, very impressive.
Also, too, I mean, so I I think he had a good week on the like, I think his combine stood out more than anything. The, Pruitt from FAM, the tight end, Jeremiah
Mm,
Pruitt, I thought he looked really, really good. Like, he just looks the part. What, 6'4", 230. I thought he had good hands. I thought he showed good movement. His feet are quick. And I do think he's kind of that guy that could be a real a mismatch in the slot, coach, because he has the size to get up over some of the smaller defensive backs. But also, too, he has the speed and athleticism where if you put a linebacker on him, they're just not going to be able to hang with him in space. And so I
yeah,
thought Pruitt had a really, really, really good performance. I'm trying to pull up his numbers right now, but what, 4.76 coach, a
yep,
33-inch vert, 10.5 broad, 4.37 shuttle. I would like to see his bench press reps get up there a little bit, especially as a tight end, more closer to 15, but 10, it is what it is. But man, his athleticism really, really popped off, especially in practice, man. Like in one-on-ones, he he was probably the top performing tight end in my opinion this weekend.
Yeah, and then I think not to mention the team, but that was kind of their thing with him. Uh, was the bench, how how strong is he? What do
Yeah.
you do with him, so to speak? Um, and then one of the questions that was kind of funny, they were like, I'm not sure what they were doing offensively, but they wasn't doing enough of it with him.
No.
Is one of the quotes
Coach, they
that
had
I
a
heard.
three tight end rotation.
Oh man, that was funny to me. I heard it, one of the guys with the shield on said, I'm not sure what they were doing offensively, but they wasn't doing it enough with him.
That they weren't. Bro, that was the
Uh,
biggest thing with Fam's offense, and I wanna say Scotty brought it up too. The fact that Pruitt wasn't featured more in this year's Fam offense is insane. Coach, because you don't find guys that are built like him with that athleticism everywhere, and you had a guy like that who could be such a mismatch, and you just didn't use him.
yeah, yeah. Got to find a way. Because how many, like you
I
said, how many guys on the other side of the ball can actually match up with that when we're talking about positioning? Uh,
not
you're
not
stuck if
many.
you go DB. You're stuck if you go linebacker. How you gonna play him?
I'll
But
say
he's
this,
gone.
Irv Mulligan too, man. I'm not surprised, right? Like I kind of expected it from Irv, but 4.58 40. He had a 35.5 inch vert, a 10-1 broad, 4.4 shuttle. Now he wasn't supposed to do the bench, and he did. Like I was told because Coach Irv and Rob are represented by Rashida, so we know they're going to be ready. She said he's going to be doing 15 at pro day. Don't worry about it. He just got too amped, jumped on the bench, and all that. But listen, Irv had a good week, man. And I think, and Irv talked about it. He didn't have much to prove in terms of coach downhill running. Right, we know what he can do as an every down running back. It was more showing what he could do as a receiving back, and I thought he did it in one on ones in practice. He made an effort to get out there and show that he had the hands to do it. Because coach, it was the same questions with Isaiah Davis for South Dakota State last year.
Yep.
The offense he was in just didn't require him to catch the football, but that didn't mean that he couldn't do it. And he showed that he could, and now he's on the active roster with the Jets. I think Irv's a guy who's going to be one of those what first 5 minute UDFA's coach, PFAs get into camp, and he's going to be just fine.
Yeah, definitely. Again, like you said, I think, and then like she said, the bench part of it, just picking that up just a little bit. And I think he was probably uh, a little faster than some may have thought.
4.58. I mean, 4.58's pretty good for him.
Yeah, because I would have never said he would touch 4.5. I would say 4.6, 4.6, but he actually touched 4.5, which is very impressive. And he was one of those guys that didn't have to do a whole lot, but he competed. And,
Yeah.
and you got to take it. You got to tip your hat to that. That kid actually competed. He played in the game. Uh, there was an opportunity for him not to play, but he played in the game late into the game. So very impressed with that kid's demeanor and his representation, making sure that they represented.
Yeah, I'll say this too. Okay, and this will be the kind of the final guy before we get into the kind of conversation about who's going to get drafted. There were a few offensive linemen that were good, just not like I think Kirk Ford had the best week out of Jackson, coach, just in terms of his ability to dominate one-on-one reps. I really, really liked him, but also to Traquan Thomas for Alabama State, man. You got to mention the MVP of the game, 4 sacks, and was just killing people off the edge, coach. And 4.91 in the 40, not terrible for a D lineman. I just think what's going to hurt Traquan is just his size, man. I like to me, looking at it, coach 6 foot 236. It's
Yeah,
just like,
where
is he going to get
where are you going to
opportunity?
play him?
Yeah, I do think that he's going to get a mini camp invite, and then it'll just be up to him to ball out there. But if not, I can see him kind of taking the same route as you remember Ronnie Thomas out of Valley,
Yeah,
undersized guy, go into the CFL or something like that because those undersized DNs just they eat
yeah.
up there.
He'll definitely have an opportunity to make a professional living in that league if he chooses to. But he just falls in that tweener area as far as what do you do with him, where you're going to play him, that kind of thing. And it would be a deal where he has to fall to the right situation within a defensive scheme,
Yeah.
to where that they could fit him into the James Harrison type mold of things. And then if he can handle himself while standing up with his hand off the ground, that's going to be an even bigger plus for him. So it'd be
Yeah.
interesting to see. But yeah, he had a game within a game. He put on the show. Ain't no doubt about it.
Could block him. And then Kendall Bowler too, man, had a really, really good week. It's Kendall falls into that area where it's like Kendall did everything I expected him to. Right? I mean, it's just I didn't like going into the week, Kendall didn't have to show anything to me. I wanted to see what his 40 was, and after his 40 was over, I was like, Kendall, just do your thing. Because I think he's a guy who is a lot to be like a high UDFA, PFA type guy. And I think that's what he showed. And then finally, man, this kid's not going to go to the league. And I texted G this during the game. Coach, you can't teach that it factor playmaking ability. But Draylon Ellis, man, like,
Oh yeah,
listen, he
he's
doesn't
electric.
have the size. He doesn't have the size. He doesn't check all the boxes for an NFL quarterback. But when the game's on the line, you want the ball in his hands. You want the ball in number seven's hands.
Yeah, he's electric.
I just,
He's electric.
coach, and you can't teach it, right? You can't teach that playmaking ability that he has where it just clicks because there are quarterbacks, coach, that are more athletic, that are bigger, that are stronger, but they don't have that.
Yeah, he's got a sixth sense. He really does. But he just has a feel for the pocket, uh, when to get out. He made a couple throws where he anticipated where the guy was going to be, um, letting it go. And that's one thing that he did in practice that I was really impressed with. He was letting balls go before his guys even got out of their breaks. So,
Yeah.
he understands, he understood what it was. And, he just had that feel about himself that one day in the indoor that he was really, clicking. He felt good, hit some passes in a row. Um, you know, just that thing that you can't teach, that spidey sense, you just can't teach it. And he's got it.
And I think that's why there's a lot of people talking. Remember, because if you remember his first year at Tennessee State, he kind of struggled, right? And he couldn't really find his footing. They changed OCs, and then you saw it this year, right? That Montana game is the perfect example of what we're talking about. If you guys want to go watch it, in that Montana game, he was the sole. Him and Karate Brinson are the only reasons they even had a shot to win that game. And every single time they needed to play, Draylon would just take the ball and go make a play. On
By the
script,
way,
all script, it doesn't matter. He just find a way to make a play. And when people were talking about benching him and not believing in him and that he was a bust, I coach, you saw me on here. There was a time where I was frustrated with Tennessee State because I remember watching Draylon at Austin P. There wasn't anyone else in HBCU football that had that.
and you kept saying that's not the same kid. That's not the same kid.
No, all it took was for him to get his confidence back, and you saw what he did, right? He can go out there and win you a game. And I really do think, coach, if he had one more year, Tennessee State could walk to the Big South OVC title. And it just kills me. Like there's those kids, and coach, we've talked about it. Kids that graduate like a year too early, and it's like, God, if
Yeah,
they just had
yeah,
one extra like JUCO free year, like some of these guys are having, he would be a superstar. And Draylon's that
definitely,
guy for me.
definitely.
Uh, and
I,
I'll say this, Mr. Campbell, you're right. Daniel Richardson had a really good week, and he kind of falls in that Draylon Ellis category. I don't know if D Rich is to play. I'm not going to say D Rich is to playmaker. Draylon is, but in terms of fundamentals, listen, D Rich has that. Coach, you and at the end of the day, I know we played for a long time, and Coach, I want you to back me up here because I know there's some fans that push back on me when I say this. You don't accidentally throw for 10,000 yards in your college career.
no,
You have to be good to throw for 10,000 yards in your career. And D Rich made some throws that were amazing in practice. And I even tweeted, like, I thought he was one of the more consistent quarterbacks of the week, but he falls into that Draylon category, not an athleticism coach, but he just doesn't have that size to make it.
yeah, it's going to be tough for him. But he played a heck of a game, and he
Yes.
had deserving so. Won the MVP. Um, you know, it's just something about that kid. Kind of down the line, like you said about Draylon, it's just something about that kid that he just kind of, you know, make throws when you don't think there's throws to be made. Uh, he lets it go, and you're like, "Where's he going?" And then all of a sudden, a receiver runs up under it. you know, and I was impressed with him, probably more so Saturday because I think he's just one of those kids that's really a gamer, if that makes sense to the
Yeah.
people that are listening. He's just a gamer. You know, when the lights are on and he gets a groove, I just think he's one of those kids that just gets hot. And if he was a 6'2", 6'3" kid, I don't think there's any issue with saying that he'd get an opportunity in one of these leagues, but he's not 6'3". So, it's just going to be tough. But he had a heck
No,
of a game, heck of a week as well.
because Draylon measured in at 5'11", 175. I
You're
real
not four, four,
if you're
four,
not Kyler Murray,
three. Yeah,
there ain't nothing I
it's
can
tough.
do for you.
Yeah, it's
And
tough.
D Rich came in at 5'9", 203 with 9-inch hands.
Yeah, tough. Tough
And
to
the
get
thing about
past that
Draylon,
paper.
Coach, you saw Draylon. Draylon is skinny like you don't realize how small Draylon is until you see him in person. But Coach, he's got 10 and 1/8 hands. That's
Yeah.
actually kind of insane to be 5'11", 175 with that with like bro, that's why he's such a good quarterback. And also too, I just don't think either of them were enough because combine performances, Ellis ran a 4.7.
Hmm.
And I'll say this, he plays faster than a 4.7. He really does. And 30-inch vert, 9.7 broad. D Rich ran a 5.1, 5.509, had a 26-inch vert. I think there's a chance, coach, maybe that they could play themselves into like a backup role in like the CFL, another league, indoor football, whatever it may be. There might be professional opportunities there for them. I just don't know if it's in the NFL. And it's okay. Coach,
Yeah,
I've been preaching it all week. I've said it on every show I've been on. It's okay to be a really good college player.
nothing wrong with that.
Nothing. And when I talked to the scout from the Cardinals about it, he was like, "Man, these kids don't understand what we see every day." Like, and I do think it would be good for people if they got the opportunity. It's hard to, right? And he laughed because he was like, "Man, y'all just need to come to practice." And I'm like, "Well, coach, well, how about we get invited to practice? How about that? Why don't you invite me to
You
practice
ain't
so I
just
can
rolling.
see?"
Yeah, you're just not
Yeah,
rolling up to an NFL practice.
no. And he was like, until you see what like true NFL talent is up close on the sidelines, not from the stands, not from film. He said, just walk into the Saints facility when they're practicing and stand amongst those guys and be on the sideline and see the speed. He
It's
said, then you'll
different.
understand why some guys are just really good college players.
And again, nothing wrong with that.
None. But coach, let's get to this. And this will be our last conversation. We'll roll out of here. The conversation's been how many HBCU guys are going to be drafted this year? I'll let you go first, man. You don't have to name names. I know how you feel about that, but these guys are graduated, so you can if you want. In your opinion, where are you putting the mark? Just give me like a range, like whether like you could say 0, 1 to 2, 3 to 5, 5 or more. We'll put it there.
I'm saying three, three to three to. You said 1 to 2 and 3 to 5, so in that three range.
Yeah.
I think there's a legitimate three that can and did enough uh, to have their names called. Now, rather that happens or not, but I think there's three that really fit the build. Um, I think McDaniel's has an opportunity. Uh, I think I'm trying to get to his numbers. I think our D lineman from Morgan State, I think he has an opportunity.
Yeah.
Um, and to be honest, uh, I think Mansfield has an opportunity. Um,
What about Vincent?
just because Vincent, I'm just not.
He was at the Senior Bowl.
Well, yeah. I wouldn't count him, but yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay. No, I'm
definitely,
talking about
yeah.
everybody. We can include
Okay,
Vincent.
yeah, 3 to 5. With him in there for sure. Uh, you know, I think that's a legitimate 3 to 5 kids that will definitely or that should definitely get their name called. Uh, so yeah, I'm gonna put mine in that 3 to 5 range.
Okay, so I have 3 guys. So me and Gerald, coach, I've been trying to dabble more into scouting. Me and Gerald's been grading these guys, 3 guys with draftable grades. in HBCU football, in my opinion. One is Vincent. I mean, I just think he like out of all the HBCU guys in this class, Vincent checks the most boxes, right? Because coach, you can't teach 6'7", 315 with those arms and go ball out at the Senior Bowl. I think the other one's Rob McDaniel. Again, a guy who checks all the boxes. And then 3 is Elijah Williams. And then a close honorable mention would be James Burgess from Alabama State, the defensive back. Just because of his size. He kind of reminds me of that Mikey Victor type
long
guy.
range
Like,
guys.
yeah. So I would say, I think so. I got 3 draftable grades with a possible 4, but here's how many I think is going to get drafted. I think it's 2. I think it's Vincent, and I think it's McDaniel, and I think they're going to be late. And I get because coach, here's what's happened, and I do want to kind of express my frustration on this, guys. Please don't fall for these fake NFL draft accounts that just tweet out shit for clickbait. Excuse my, but they just tweet out anything to make a few bucks off of your Twitter clicks. Listen, and I love Carson Vincent, and he's going to get drafted. I'm going to do everything, and me, Gerald, and the site, and here on this podcast, for me and Coach, and even Timothy on the audio, we're going to do whatever we can to make sure that we promote him, and hopefully he gets drafted. But bro, he's not a freaking first round pick. We got to stop because here's the only reason I'm frustrated, Coach. We can promote him all we can, but we got to be realistic because what you're doing is you're setting him up for disappointment. You're setting the school up for disappointment. You're setting fans up for disappointment, and you're making people look dumb out there. Coach, he's just not a first round pick. Like, go look at the offensive line class.
No, and this may be the deepest, from what I understand.
Offensive tackle is now. I'll say this: true offensive tackles is really not that deep, and that's why I think he's going to get drafted, Coach. Because it's really like there's a few guys who are in the first, Coach, but then there's a whole bunch of offensive tackles that are going to have to move inside, and then there's like a big gap to like day 3 guys. But I'll say this, and D, I'm glad you put this in here. The biggest thing in scouting, Coach, and I feel like we fall into this trap every year. One-on-ones at all-star games and all-star game performances do not weigh more than what's on film. Combine performances do not outweigh what's on film. And listen, it's great, man. Go ball out at the Senior Bowl, and maybe you do improve your stock, Coach. But I asked a scout about Vincent. I said, man, do you really believe some of this hype about, early day 2, day 1? He was like, dude, in the history of the NFL draft, he's like, there has never been a guy coming into the process that was a UDFA that became a first round pick in the process. He said, it's never happened in the history of football, and it never will. He said, I don't think people understand what it really takes to be a first round pick in the NFL. And so, do I think that he can maybe sneak into late day 2? Absolutely. Especially if he goes to the combine and has like a Teron Armstead type performance, right? But man, we got to put some like training wheels on this, man. Stop falling for these fake Twitter insiders with no things that are just looking for clicks. The kid's going to get drafted, but bro, first round pick is crazy. We got to stop it. We got to set some expectations here. And I've been waiting like weeks to say it because I didn't really want to sound like a hater. And me and Gerald have talked about it. And I told him I'll take the bullets. We got to stop. We got to put some realistic expectations on our guys here.
Definitely.
We really do.
Because if you go back and you look at the kid from Southern a couple of years ago, the kid from Alabama State a couple of years ago that were early guys, not the same makeup, and I think that's the benchmark for our league as to where you have to be. Will he get his name called? No doubt about it. But I just don't know if it'll go any that first day.
Thank you for saying this, Ed. NFL Rookie Watch. It's like ML Football. There's a few other random like accounts, and they're all verified because they all pay for verification. Block them.
Tell me how they're doing it, man. I need some beer and cigar money. If they're doing ridiculous takes like this and getting paid.
Coach, I'll tell you this. It's such a nasty game out there that me and you can make an account and call it like NFL Insider Plus or some random shit like that. We'll pay for some verification. We'll get some bots to follow us. We'll get up to 3,000-4,000 followers. We could just start making fucking quotes up, and they would go viral. You would have publications writing about
Explain that again.
I mean, it's a nasty business, man. It really
uh,
is. And the scouts were talking about it this weekend.
we wouldn't deal in
Yeah.
lies. We'd be straight facts,
Listen,
man.
was it Dov Kleinum or whatever it is? Bro, it just
I gotta
making
get back on
stuff
Twitter, man. I'm tripping. I haven't been
making
a
stuff
lot of
up.
time. Okay, I
And
gotta get back on Twitter.
it hurts the kids because some of these tweets will just go absolutely viral. And then guess what? People will hop behind a podcast mic and be like, so and so from Oregon State's a first round pick, and that kid's a UDFA. Got no chance to go first round and just making stuff up. It's disgusting.
Right.
Listen, but listen, I'll say this: Titus Howard was at the Senior Bowl balling. Like Titus Howard didn't go from UDFA to first round pick. Like Titus Howard was a day 2 guy that worked his way into first round consideration.
Yeah.
Similar to, perfect example, Gray Zabel this year for North Dakota State. The offense, he was offensive tackle at North Dakota State. He's going to move down to guard or center. Early day 2 guy, right, coach? Coming into the Senior Bowl, won the best player of the week there, is performing at a high level. North Dakota State kind of has that role now where their guys kind of get the benefit of the doubt. Working your way from early day 2 to first round is not a big shot. Working
Howard,
yourself
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh no, working yourself from not being drafted to first round has never happened in the history of NFL draft grades.
Now, and the Howard, if you go back, if I'm not mistaken, whoever their money game was
Oh, it was Auburn.
was dominating.
Dominated Auburn.
Was actually killing folks, like should have been put in jail type thing. And it just continued and continued and continued.
Yeah.
So
and that's another example of like, okay, so not everyone watches the same film, and that's cool. Like but coach, if you like when you guys scout, like when you guys went and scouted UAB Vandy, if there was a bona fide first round offensive tackle, how many people on y'all's coaching staff would be able to immediately go, well, that kid's legit? Every one of them.
Oh yeah.
The GAs,
yeah,
like, come on, bro. Everybody's like, yeah, that kid's really good. Like, I don't really think. Yeah, and also too, I do think, because maybe I want to do this because I have a friend who's like really into scouting. Like he's been through the scouting academy. Like he's been a national scout. We really need to try to get him on the show, maybe for like a coach's lounge or something, or just coach's corner, and really break down for like how these kids are scouted. Because talking to scouts in person, production is cool, and production does matter, right, coach? Measurables matter, all this. The key traits are what matter the most. Traits over everything.
And it's what they deem to be that. So,
yes,
we don't have any control over what they consider to be their number
key
one
traits.
Yeah, we don't have any control over that. Now, what gets you on that list, of course, is measurables, production, potential. That gets you on the list to even get your tape looked at. And then once your tape is looked at, then like you said, that's when it pops. And then that's when, okay, cool, we got to get somebody down there to see it. Okay, cool, it's different. The thing that helped Claude for us become an undrafted kid, as the guy from the Jets said, he just played fast. He was on tape. He played fast and he played violent. And when we played UAB, he was out there. He played about Tulane, actually. He played really fast, like faster than they were playing. So that jumped off tape, and he just continued to play that way and got himself an opportunity. But those things, those traits, those measurables, that all gets you on the paper. And then it's up to you to keep yourself on the paper and kind of go from there. But yeah, I'm in the process, man. I got to come up with a Fred NFL Live or something, and start making up these. We'd be straight facts, man. We wouldn't make that up.
Yeah, no, it's just nasty, man. I just hate it because like these kids don't like understand that, and like there's like a bunch of fans that get taken advantage by these accounts because they don't understand it, right, coach?
Definitely.
They just
see
don't
it,
get.
and you forward it, like it, share it, and then like you said, before then,
A-
It's got to be true. It's on the internet.
in the perfect example of traits with no production, Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. That's it. Go watch what he's about to do at the combine, coach. That
Come
kid's going to
test
be
really
on
well.
every video. That kid's going to be on every video, every top performers list. That kid is going to just be a freak this next week. And the combine starts on Thursday for people who don't know. I'll pull that up real quick, coach, so people kind of know where they can catch FCS and everything. So the scouting combine schedule Thursday the 27th are D linemen and linebackers. We have David Walker from Central Arkansas and Teddy Buchanan. UC Davis spent a year at Cal. Friday DBs and tight ends. You got Marcus Harris, Ice Waxter, Jackson Hayes. Saturday is QBs, wide receivers, and running backs. You got Yarns and Brosmer. And then Sunday's O line, we got Charles Grant, Jackson Slater, Carson Vincent, Gray Zabel, Jalen Travis, Torricelli Simpkins. So make sure to pay attention to the combine later this week, man. But yeah, Shamar Stewart, the guy who Carson Vincent beat in a one-on-one rep. But guess what? He checks more trait boxes than Vincent. So guess what? Shamar Stewart's probably going to go first round.
Oh, somebody's going to say they can get it out of him just because of those traits and the measurables. We can fix that. We can get it done. That's how
Yeah.
that's going to go.
But listen, man, and also too, I'm going to say this, and I don't want to give too much away because it's not confirmed. And coach, you kind of heard this too. Do not be surprised if all-star games have a major change moving forward. And I'm not just talking about just the Legacy Bowl. There's a reason the hula is starting to kind of trend down. There's a reason these other all-star games have starting to end. And it's because the college football schedule is shifting. What, coach, the college football playoff didn't end until like the 21st, 22nd. So some of those guys had to opt out of the Senior Bowl because they only had like a week to get ready for the
Get
Senior Bowl.
themselves ready. Yeah. Heal
That
up, whatever.
just wait, okay? And I'm going to say this: if the Legacy Bowl undergoes a major change upcoming, don't freak out. It is for the better of these prospects because
We'll
all-star
find
games
another
are
way.
going out of style. Pro days and combines matter more than the game. And also, too, last I guess last hill I'm going to die on today. And we got a quick question for Coach in the chat. We'll wrap this up. HBCU media. We got to get our days straight on the on the Legacy Bowl. If you go to any All-Star game, Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, Hula Bowl, old NFLPA game, old blue-gray game, Monday through Friday matter. Can we get someone to cover the players on Monday through Friday through practices? Can we highlight the practices, the one-on-ones, the performance? Because there ain't no media there from Monday to Friday. But then, coach, Saturday, everybody wants to show up and get all the clips from the game and be at the game. Coach, the scouts left what, Thursday afternoon? You were there.
Yeah. Thursday. Yeah.
The game doesn't matter. We got to do better as a media group covering these all-star games. And the Legacy Bowl is the only one where the media hasn't got on the train of we need to be there Monday through Friday, not Saturday.
Working.
Come cover
Yeah.
your guys during the week. And more schools got to get media there to cover them. That's it. That's been on my soul for like 2 years, coach, because there's too many coach, even Alcorn. Bro, you guys got players in New Orleans. Get somebody there. Coach, how much content have you recorded for Alcorn on the Common Man with just your iPhone?
All of it.
We ain't ask. No one's asking you to go get a whole camera crew and have NFL film style background music and all this, bro. Just come get some reps.
Yeah,
Bro, I didn't see fan post one thing about Jeremiah Pruitt all week. Balling. I didn't see Tennessee State post anything about Draylon or Ramon Nelson. They were balling. Morgan State, hell, Gerald's on the staff, so I guess that kind of counts. But me and Gerald doing all the work promoting Elijah.
True.
Senior Bowl. Where was Alabama A&M for Carson? That's in the state, coach.
Yeah.
It's a
That was
day
disappointing.
job.
That was disappointing. That was disappointing.
Oh, I'm so frustrated, man. I'm so frustrated. But coach, this is a question for you from our guy Quentin. Why do players run faster at pro days versus combine? He was surprised by some of the 40 times this week.
Handheld versus laser. Laser is really something you have to practice on. It's tricky. it moves off of the slightest, the clock starts. So you have to understand that. So there's a little buffer when you're talking laser compared to handheld. So that's kind of the difference. And if you go to the right pro day, they will factor in a couple tenths of a second just because of that. Because, if a guy jumps out there and runs 4.2 something, everybody's going to have their clock and it's going to be a whole bunch of different times. And then they'll just round to the middle of it. As to where a laser is going to be what they consider to be accurate.
Yep. And if I'm not mistaken, Combine uses laser all the pro
That's right.
days. I think all the pro days use handheld.
Yep.
That's the biggest difference. And also too, like you said, you get a little bit extra to prepare for the pro day too. So, and also too, if you do run it like a combine versus pro day, you have experience now too, right? So you probably improved a little
Understand that.
bit, understand what's going on more. And also too, I've heard this from some players, coach, and this I want to say that's why I say this. This isn't for everybody. This is for some players. Why you see it, bro? The pressure of being at a combine is so much different than a pro day because you're
Yeah, I
surrounded
tell
by a
you.
bunch of guys you don't know. You're in a different location. A lot of guys feel more comfortable because they've practiced there, their whole career, right? And so, coach, like a guy at Jackson's going to be more comfortable in Jackson than he is in Indianapolis at the combine. And also, if you go to the real combine, man, coach, can you imagine the pressure with Bill
Oh,
Belichick and all these, or not? Well, he's in North Carolina now, but Sean
from the minute,
McVay,
yeah, from the
yeah,
minute you walk in
Sean
the building.
McVay up in the crowd, right?
Yeah.
And you're on NFL Network, and like the pressure's just it's a different level.
About your livelihood.
Yeah, and like Teron said, how we're balled out versus Auburn. Always. And listen, that's why never mind. We're not going to get to that. That's why money games matter, but some people say they don't. And, the data says they do, but, we aren't going to get into that argument. But, coach, last words, man. Anything you want to say to the people?
Nah, man, just appreciate you guys tuning in with us. Again, man, good job. Great job by you this week. Uh, well, this past week on that, on point. We had to fight through some things logistically, but you fought through. You got us through it. So again, Dan, good job. Appreciate you, and
For sure, man.
we will tee it up again, man. As these things keep coming down the pike, this is where it starts to really get heavy. Everybody says it's the off season, but this is when it starts to pick up again.
Mm.
Right here in the next week or so with pro days coming up. So if you guys have information on pro days that we can't get to, shoot it to us. Let's see if we can't dig and get some numbers and some breakdowns, and gotta go from there, man.
And me and coach are going to try to do something for the Mississippi Pro Day.
Yep, yep.
Potentially. So we'll keep you guys updated on that. Interview with Efton Chisholm, Eastern Washington wide receiver, coming. It'll be released on Thursday. We're recording on Wednesday, man. So I want to start highlighting some of these FCS guys coming out. So stay tuned for interviews like that. Me and Coach will be back with some live streams, audio version. Me and Timothy always going to be chopping up about something FCS football related. And a big announcement. And I do this backwards. I should do the big announcements at the beginning, but I always save them to the end because I'm always excited about the topics. Coach, Timothy, man, the Bluebloods have signed with the Believe Network. A lot of you guys know them. I mean, they have a bunch of different self-titled Believe in, whatever podcast. Coach JB signed to them. My guy Bryce Kuhn and the Crowded Booth signed to them, and they got a bunch of big podcasts. We signed to join the network, so man, we'll be having some more ad reads, stuff like that on this audio version. You'll notice a lot more post-rolled ads, mid-rolled ads. So just another way to help promote us, help make a little bit of money off the podcast and stuff like that. Man, we've had the podcast, what, Coach, 2019?
Man,
I don't think we've ever had ads on the audio version, and I think we've had DraftKings and the Pouncey twins on this show. We've been kind of staying away, but it's time to
pick it up.
um yeah. Yes, Mr. Campbell, all the HBCU Legacy Combine results are available on our website, si.com/college/FCS. If you
Yep.
go to the FCS Football Central on SI Twitter page, scroll down a little bit, they should be on there. And this is the thing that I think people are confused about. The Combine and the Legacy Bowl are not the same organization.
Right.
So there were guys who performed at the combine that didn't get an invite to the Legacy Bowl and vice versa. So if you see different names, if you don't see a name, there were some kids that just didn't get invited to one or the other because they're two independent organizations that just happen to be on the same week and kind of work in conjunction with each other. But they're available on the website, si.com/college/FCS. But Coach, man, appreciate all you guys tuning in. Hit the like button, subscribe. Me and Coach will be back either later this week or next week with another show. We're going to be doing a bunch of draft content, stuff like that. But for Coach Leroy Frederick, for myself, for the Blue Bloods, FCS Football Central on SI, we out for right now.